aloha and welcome. And today we have a friend of mine who is a fantastic luthier. I'm a big fan of his ukuleles, Pepe Romero. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Andrew.
Oh yeah, man, it's been a while. Last time I really got to hang out was I think was in 2016. Got to visit the shop and check out some of your very cool instruments. And yeah, well, next time in town, I'm definitely gonna have to stop by again.
Yeah, anytime. Mi casa es su casa.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, thanks, man. Thanks. But yeah, how have you been over like all these years?
I've been doing really well, staying incredibly busy. I'm inspired artistically, and there's a combination of artistic inspiration and inspired by having to take care of my family. So,
For
it's
sure.
all positive and feeling blessed that I can.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah, like I'm looking forward to like, some of your future aspirations for instruments. You're very innovative. You're doing stuff like like was it the skin bracing and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Do you still do that for models?
all my custom ukuleles since I don't know when I started that, maybe 4 years ago. All my ukuleles and mini guitars, so geleles,
Mm.
are has a skin bracing system,
Oh,
and made maybe 15 classical guitars that way. For
okay.
some, I like it better in classical, and some things I like my old reverse bracing system better. But for the ukuleles, I will never go anywhere away from that. I'll modify it, play with it, and tweak it.
Yeah.
But I think it's perfect for that.
Oh man, yeah, I got to play. I think it was Daniel Ho was just telling me that it was I think it was like Italian maple back in sides. It's the one that
Yes,
you're gonna make that I got to try out that one time. And I
it
think
was
the
a
top was cedar, I believe.
yes, yeah, Western red cedar and Italian flame maple, which is a very classical guitar combination of woods.
Yeah,
Uh,
and it was
Both,
so loud too.
yeah, big warm power is
Hmm.
what that combination gives you, and the ukulele is inherently bright. So you don't. Sometimes when instruments, people say that they get overly warm and big, they get kind of muddy, they lose focus.
Right.
But the ukulele inherently has that focus in it, and
Hmm.
I think that's a really fun combination of woods to use for ukulele building.
Yeah, it was loud, but yet it was like you could like tap the bottom and you could like, oh, this thing is like paper thin. Was that and was that also with the skin bracing or was that normal bracing?
No, that one was, well, it still wasn't normal. It was my reverse fan bracing. So normal bracing would be fan braces that are up by the sound hole. They're closer together, and then they fan out down into the body.
Oh,
And
okay.
I inverted that, where they're closer together behind the bridge and they open up towards the sound hole. This
Ah,
is Romero Creations ukuleles are made, and how my customs were until I came up with that skin brace.
mm.
Uh, what inverting the fans does is it makes it a little freer vibrating in front of the bridge, which is what's doing most of the generating of vibration and sound. So it will produce a longer sustaining instrument that's a little warmer.
Oh, that
And that's,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So
that's
I,
and where'd you come up with that idea?
it was a, so my hero in guitar building is Miguel Rodriguez. He's a old Spanish master who passed away. I got to study with him a little bit before he died, but my family pretty much made their careers on his work. And there's a dealer that represents me up in LA, Guitar Salon International, that had we talk all the time about interesting guitars, and they had this 1970 Miguel Rodriguez. And the guy's like, you gotta see this because the fans are backwards. They're not fanned out normal. They're the opposite, reversed. So I went up to check that guitar out, and it had this brilliant sustain that I had never heard in a guitar.
Mm.
It wasn't louder than the others, but it was this kind of shimmery magic around the high end frequencies. And I decided I wanted to play with it and find out how this works. And I fell in love with it. I modified it, made it my own thing. And then I was already doing that before I started building ukuleles.
Okay.
When I started building ukuleles, I adopted that design principle with the reverse fan braces.
Okay. Oh, so just like you're just like thinking out of the box, like reverse fan bracing, skin bracing, like and
Yeah,
that probably adds a lot to why your instruments sound just so crisp and so clear.
there are no rules. I think the most important thing as an instrument builder is to know, to have a goal and a sound in your head, to know what the end result you want is. Not to say like I want to make something great or I want to make it loud. If you actually know what that sound is,
Mm,
then you can set out to achieve that. And I grew up with that sound in my head from my family playing the world's best classical guitars.
I bet.
Then I was lucky enough to study with great masters one on one in their workshops in Europe. So I learned my luthiery that way, and then by the time I approached the ukulele, I my desire for the sound didn't change. I still wanted to make a small instrument that produced those sounds and
Yeah.
at volumes. Um, so that's yeah, kind of in my in when I started building guitars, the bar was set so high that only something really exceptional would be accepted. Otherwise, it's like we didn't need more guitars in the house, but more great guitars, okay, that'll work.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure all you guys know this, but Pepe's dad, Pepe Sr., is just an accomplished guitarist, very well known, and so just how was that just growing up around that atmosphere of your dad's presence and all that?
Well, one thing, my dad was always a very loving, warm father to me,
Mm-hmm.
so that part of dad was great. Um, my my father, my uncles, and my grandfather, when I was little, all top world class musicians. So they were playing and working relentlessly. The practicing, if they weren't on tour, they were practicing 8 hours a day.
Wow.
My father, I remember being a little kid and my dad's just playing scales, going through runs, pieces, and I'm kind of grabbing at the neck of his guitar, trying to get his attention, and he wouldn't break focus. The tours back then would be 3 months, 4 months gone, road trips around the United States, trips around Europe, and there were no cell phones. So we weren't, when they were gone, and they were gone. One day, 4 months later, my dad would show up and I'd be like, oh my God, my dad. So I missed him a lot, but I did
Oh,
get to go with him on several of those tours, and both on his solo trips and then his trips with the quartet with the family, who later my cousins joined in as part of the quartet. So I grew up with a love and understanding of the guitar, but I also that kid that missed my dad for months at a time and
mm,
saw him gone, and it made it tough dynamic with the family, parents split and all that, and I blamed the musician life for it.
mm.
So from the time I was a little kid, I knew I was going to do something where I could go home every night. And I grew up with that. And then my dad and my grandpa, and my uncles saw that I could play, and they were waiting for me to realize that I'm supposed to go on tour with them.
Oh,
Like, when's this guy going to get serious? The other factor was I knew I liked to play guitar, but I like to play for half an hour. And
oh,
if you
not 8 hours.
half an hour, you're never going to be good enough to play with those guys.
Mm,
So those two factors created some tension, mostly in my mind. Maybe by the time I'm a teenager and they're kind of feeling like, well, you got to get serious about this. And I'm just like, this, what are you talking about? I'm not doing it.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I was just gonna ask, like was that something that you thought was maybe expected because there's just so much weight of being junior and did they want you to play and follow in your father's footsteps or
Definitely. They, not just they wanted me, that was like, they thought that's my destiny, that I can't fight it. And it got to a point where it's like, I'm running out of time if I'm going to do this in their mind. Uh, Hey man, come on, get serious.
so
What's
that's a lot
happening?
of pressure on you as a kid.
Yeah. And then the other thing was all the people who, after a concert, hang out with the family, and the expectation is that I'm going to be as good as my dad, which I am not anywhere near. I don't belong in the same planet as a player, and so that made it impossible for me to feel confident to play in front of anybody.
Mm.
So if we kind of reverse a little bit to junior high school, I fell in love with. I took woodshop, and I loved woodshop. I took it all junior high, and then high school you were allowed to take 2 semesters. So I took my freshman year both semesters, and I got permission from the counselors to keep going. So I took woodshop just because I loved woodshop every semester through high school and junior high school. And I was like, oh man, I love woodshop. This is great. One day I want to have, something in my garage so I can mess around and make stuff.
Okay, so that's
And
where the initial like fascination with the working with wood came from.
yes, and gave me, the crude elementary woodworking skills.
Okay.
My grandfather, who I was really close to, my dad's father, who was the founder of the quartet, taught my dad, taught my uncles, he was sick with cancer my senior year of high school. And I would go see him. When I knew it was the end, I would skip school whenever I could just to spend a few hours with him.
Mm.
And he knew about my love for woodwork. And, I'd make jewelry boxes and cutting boards and a clock and the standard stuff. I told him I had to go take a test. We called him Papa, which is dad, but he was my grandfather. Anyway, I have to go to school. And he said, Pepe, when are you going to say F you to school? Build guitars in my house. Forget about that. Just stay here. And I was laughed it off. I was like, well, that's crazy. You can't do that here. And I went, took my test. My grandfather passed away, and I wanted to build a guitar for him. One guitar for him. I still didn't entertain the thought of I'm a guitar maker. So I finished high school. This is 1996. And I went that summer to Washington State with my dad to one of his concerts, and one of his guitar builder friends, Dave Traphagen, who's a accomplished world-class classical guitar builder, said, hey, if you ever want to build a guitar, come see me. I was like, oh man, I want to build a guitar for my grandfather. So that winter break, I was taking college classes at the junior college in local. I made my first guitar in Traphagen's workshop, and I was loving the process. And he was real straightforward. He's here's the piece of wood, cut here, cut this, glue these together, and had a guitar. And when we strung that guitar up, it was an epiphany of, it knocked me over to the point I was on the ground laying like, this is it. The guitar to me is as a guitar builder. And I knew that was the answer to the love I had, the reason I don't want to play guitar as a professional. But the whole thing just clicked, and I never looked back. I went and studied in Europe with some great masters, and I would go in the summers and study. And for a while, for 2.5 years, I took classes at the junior college. I worked part-time. I worked at 7-Eleven in the mornings. Then I would go to take classes, and then I would go, my first workshop was in my sister's garage with no machines. And everything I did, I needed a new tool. So I would get that tool. My second guitar took me a year to build because I was just figuring things out. And then I moved to my mom's garage, a little more space, and then next to the shop that was in the house where you saw.
Yeah,
there was
yeah.
I worked for 5 years in a tiny laundry room with a washer and dryer going, just aching me to death. And then they did an expansion on that house for me, and that was a shop you saw. Worked for 17 years until 3 years ago I came to the shop I just walked you through. But I found myself through the vision of my grandfather, because he was like, hey, right before he died, you're a guitar maker, build them here in my house. And so for 17 years I built guitars in his house. It was after he died, but somehow he knew it.
Wow, it's like it was meant to be. Like in the moment you finished that first guitar, it's just like, that's my destiny. And the fact, I think it's cool because you're still in that same realm of the guitar maker. Now you're just, you're not a performer, but you're a maker, but you're still surrounded by the instruments. And now,
Yes.
like, I mean, do you make instruments for your dad?
I've made every 10th guitar for my father. So I have a collection called the Zeros collection. It's number 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, poo poo, all the way up. I've made 340. And that doesn't include my ukuleles. I'm in about 210 ukuleles or so. I didn't number the ukuleles, but so I had that collection. I still have 15 of those Zeros collection guitars that I made for my father, and then we kind of share that.
Wow. So from going from like, him thinking you're gonna, you're gonna follow the footsteps of being a musician. How was his reaction when you built him his first guitar?
I think there was an aspect of relief to him too, and I think it, in my mind, all the pressure to play went away immediately. I no longer cared that I wasn't a great guitar player. I could play in front of people because I wanted to hear the instrument. I think from him, it was like, oh, this is what it's supposed to be. So kind of like, okay, I knew it was the guitar for you, but it's this direction, not the same family line. So
Yeah, yeah.
he was tremendously excited. He called all these, world-class guitar builders, got me to be able to study with master builders who do not teach, but it was kind of because they're friends of him, I got to do that. And I got an education that's impossible to get
Wow,
because of, yeah.
that's special, man. That's special. And it's like, and I think a lot of us can agree that we're glad that you went down that path. And now we have epic guitars and ukuleles, like, that you make and we get to play them. So wow, that's such a cool story. And
Oh,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
still excited. Like that first day, I'm telling you, when I strung that first guitar up, I still get pumped every time I string them up, and every day I get to come into the workshop, and that's my job. I just thank God.
Definitely. And when you love what you do, I think that's so special. And a lot of people don't get to experience that, unfortunately. But that's really cool that that you found your passion, your calling in life. And
Yeah.
yeah, so when did you start going into the direction of like, oh, how about an ukulele now?
So this is 2010. My
Okay.
wife and so I had already been building guitars since 1997 in January. The beginning of 1997 is when I built my first guitar. So I'd been at it for 13 years. My wife and I had our daughter who had just turned 2 or was about to turn 2 in 2010. We went to Oahu for the first time, and we just fell in love with the island. We heard a lot of ukulele, saw a lot of ukulele, and we were enchanted by it. And we came home and we're in a local music shop, and my wife and little 2-year-old daughter looked up asking me, hey, will you make us ukuleles? I had been approached by clients before to make ukuleles, and I thought, yeah, maybe one day. I didn't understand it yet. I hadn't fallen in love with it. And after that trip to Hawaii, I got it, what they are. These are little incredible instruments that are capable of producing world-class big tone and sound, and the playing can be basic and it can be extremely advanced, everything in between. So it took that experience for me to have the right motivations to do it. So I made in 2011, I finished my first run of ukuleles.
Oh,
And
okay.
my wife and daughter got the first 2.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And I guess probably before, like, in like early 2000s, 90s, I mean, ukulele wasn't really seen as I guess people serious instrument. It was fairly new, and it's nothing compared to like how it started exploding, especially after like, Jake played it, and then it just kind of created this new generation for the ukulele. So maybe that was a factor as well.
I think that for me, it was I hadn't been exposed to it enough to understand it. So once you see what you guys in Hawaii have to offer, which back before social media, really, that's, I think, a huge factor that now people can see what everywhere has. People
Yeah.
can easily share beauty, music. You kind of had to be there to see it and get inspired. So that is what happened with me. I showed up there and oh my God, what have I been missing my whole life? This is pure, it's joy. it's magic. It's you telling story, talking story through music and feeling, and it's all positive. There's one thing that I really appreciate about the ukulele community, and the last 10 years I've been building ukuleles, is everybody's just prepared to be excited. They're not there to critique or look for something that they are missing. They're there just to be inspired and happy, and it creates such a positive atmosphere that it's a wonderful place to be, and wonderful business to be in because of that.
Yeah, ukulele community is just very unique in a way. Like you're right, it's like everyone's happy. Like when do you ever come
Yeah,
across an upset ukulele player or a negative ukulele? It's kind of on the rare side, but yeah, there's some magic about the ukulele, and I've been saying this a lot. But yeah, I mean, right place to get in business with a lot of happy people.
yeah, yeah.
And what kind of wood did you use for your first ukulele?
My number one, which went to my wife, is all koa. I had
Okay.
some Hawaiian koa that was set for guitar building. I only made a few classical guitars with koa, but I did have some. And then my daughter, I let her pick, and it was a German spruce with Brazilian rosewood back and sides.
Ooh, nice.
So I had, in guitar building, I bought a lot of wood. I invested immediately, put pretty much everything I had into wood for years and years and years, and created this big stockpile of wood. And a lot of that wood, parts of the backs would kind of warp or split. And I had this big pile of wood that for classical guitars I couldn't use. And when I decided to build ukuleles, and I pulled out my template, it was tiny compared to the guitar template.
Mm.
And though that pile of wood had mostly perfect sections, just not big enough for the classical guitar. And I started pulling out these incredible sets of wood for ukulele that it kind of gave new life to all that wood. So
Nice.
that, like my daughter's first Brazilian rosewood guitar, you wouldn't think you're going to use that for like your first instruments, but this was wood that I felt like the ukulele saved that pile of wood.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
And
I
then
still
what?
have a pile like that.
And what? When did it like? Was that an idea of like, oh, like I'm gonna give this, you got the basic design of the ukulele, but give it more of like a classical guitar sound.
Mm, no, hold on a second. You can come in. My brother-in-law William just walked in, who does
No
my
worries.
French. Yeah. Um, so when I made my first ukuleles, before I did it, I called my friend at the Blue Guitar, which was a music shop in San Diego, and they do a lot of ukulele. And I asked him, picked his brain for what should an ukulele be, and what's the most desirable size and plays the most. And I wound up buying a 1950s Martin tenor and a new Kamaka tenor
Hmm.
to study what's the ukulele basically. And in my, what, like, from a view of, he knew where I come from. And so this was kind of like the epitome of the Hawaiian ukulele. And then that old Martin would be like the most classical kind of ukulele as far as the body shape. They were classic guitar lines. So I studied those instruments, took basic dimensions, like how big's an ukulele neck supposed to be, how braced are they, how generally thick should woods be, and then took those sort of parameters and infused what I do for classical guitars and
Mm.
turned it in, and tweaked the body shapes and tweaked the neck. But I did study that Kamaka and that Martin to find out what is an ukulele first.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, what is your personal favorite combination of wood for ukulele?
I'm kind of a pig. I want them all. It's so I love. I'll give you an answer, but first I'll tell you. Spruce tops or cedar tops with either koa or maple or walnut, mahogany, Spanish cypress. They all maple. They all give a different tone. It's kind of, I look at the wood combinations as an artist with a palette full of paints, and they all, you're going to do something beautiful, but you can change that art piece based on the colors, and all those woods are the colors.
I see.
So you can get to know someone and what sound they want to hear, and then knowing the way that I brace an instrument, thickness an instrument, and then those wood combinations, you can select something that's going to be really perfect for them. And then you can play with it. So if I could only build one combination for the ukulele, I would have to go with rosewood body and a spruce top.
Nice classic sound.
Crisp and punchy. And then with the way that I brace them, the result really is the one that captures the essence of the tonal qualities that I desire and the power.
Nice. Yeah, I love that combination. And I think just like in the ukulele world, when you first get into ukulele, you think, just koa, 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 that's like, I mean, I was like that when I was growing up. And
Yeah.
in the
And I
past,
love ukulele.
yeah, me too, me too. And then, but within this last 5 years, I've been really fascinated of with just these different combinations. So I love like when you talk about different kinds of wood like that, because it's like it's becoming kind of a fascination of mine too. I've become quite a collector. I've almost all the tone woods. Even mango was is
Yeah.
interesting too. Daniel Ho was telling me about his mango ukulele, and that's one of his favorites. I think
Yes.
his tiny tenor, right? I think it's a custom.
Yes. No, it's actually a Romero Creations.
Oh, is it?
The production tiny tenor. And the mango is interesting because the wood is not that strong. It's very soft. Structurally, honestly, not the best from a luthier's standpoint. What happens with the ukulele is they're inherently overbuilt because of the small body and the curves involved in that body. They tend to be too stiff. It's you almost as a custom builder, you want to build them structurally sound, but on the verge of not being structurally sound anymore. You want it only strong enough to hold, and then it's really going to ring and have that power and vibration. Koa is very strong. German spruce, very strong. Rosewood, very strong. That mango mellows it. You don't overbuild a mango ukulele. It's no longer too stiff. It's going to be warm and have that beautiful high end, but it gives a richness and a mellowness that if you want to generalize ukulele, they're inherently overbuilt, especially in a production setting. So Romero Creations is a small shop, but it's a production setting. They do great work, and those mango ukuleles have a freedom of vibration that is, I would say, superior to the others, because they in a production setting, you can't work on the verge of the thinnest possible, because you have to be able to treat every piece of wood differently and know in your hands when that thickness is changed. In a production setting, you pick a thickness. The koas are this thick, the mango's this thick. Every piece of wood, not one after another, different and different. They can't make those choices. So mango solves the problem of some of the instruments being a little too stiff. And then visually, it's, they're art masterpieces just by the nature of the tree and the bugs that go in there and give those staining streaks, the spalted stuff. So did you know that the spalted mango wood is light in color? And then that dark streaking that goes through the Romero Creations ukuleles, that's called spalting. It can be on any kind of wood, and it's from a bug that goes into that tree and introduces a fungus into the tree. Not on purpose, just that happens, and it starts to leach through the tree randomly, and that's those black streaks you see.
That's interesting. Oh, got a little ukulele lesson right there. I never knew that. That's cool. And then I think you made one for, was it Mike Love, which was like the back and sides was also from, like, was it Beetle Nut or something?
Beetle Kill.
Beetle
Beetle
kill.
kill. I don't know that Mike has a Beetle kill. Mike has 2 or 3 of my ukuleles and 2 of my classical guitars.
Mm-mm.
But I did for Jack Johnson make Beetle kill ukulele and Beetle kill classical guitar.
Oh, maybe it was Jack Johnson actually.
It was Jack, and we did a little 6-minute documentary for the Climate Reality Project. You could look it up, called The Guitar of Reality. And the Rocky Mountains were devastated by bark beetles, all from like Arizona up into Canada. All the pine trees, not all, 90% of the pine trees are killed by beetles. It was an infestation. It was brought on by global warming, where the life cycle of the beetles, the winters weren't cold enough to kill the beetles. So the beetles are natural. They've been around forever. They killed some trees. In the winter, they would freeze, they would die out. But they weren't dying out because it wasn't cold enough. So the breeding of these beetles went crazy. And they wiped out the pines of the Rocky Mountains. And I built a guitar for a film that Jack was the narrator, and they built it around the building of this guitar for him to play on in concert. And it was a killer project.
Oh wow.
Went out to Colorado and visited all the devastated forest, which was brutal for me because I had heard about this, but then to go into the forest and, you drive up and everything's gray and you're kind of like, oh, okay, it's gray. But then when you get into it and you're just seeing dead tree after dead tree for as far as you drive, it was really eye-opening.
Dang. And
kind of a heavy piece, right? So
yeah.
I've built quite a few instruments out of that pine. I did in the shop that you visited. I had done my decorative wall in beetle kill pine. Beautiful stuff.
Oh.
But yeah, it was same thing with the spalted mango. The beetles go in there. They introduce a fungus. They actually feed their larva that fungus, but it leaches into the tree and it kills the trees.
How did you like the tone of the beetle kill?
So I had to treat that totally different. I was real skeptical for the film because they approached me and said, "Hey, we're going to do this." They pitched the idea, and you're going to build this guitar with this pine. And I was like, that does not sound good. Like I'll figure it out. I love it. I used much thicker pieces of wood. What I did was trust my hands I want the same flexibility as a koa back or a rosewood back. So I made the back and sides with beetle kill, worked them much thicker, and made some great instruments with it. Warm. It's a lot like the mango. Very warm.
Nice. Yeah. When you said like infested, that's what made me think about the beetle kill. So I was like, oh, maybe it's similar.
Same deal. Here's one of those guitars that I made for myself with the beetle kill pine.
Oh, it's an interesting color too.
So this is the natural color of the pine. And then the fungus is that gray green.
Wow. That's pretty unique, I have to say.
It's beautiful looking, and it's a great sounding instrument. I haven't been disappointed with any of them. So I've done a handful of ukuleles and a handful of guitars with it.
Oh, nice. Oh, so sorry. Since we're at it, you want to show some of the ukuleles you have in the back right there?
I'd love to. This little area serves as the Romero Creations showroom. Nice. Here's a spalted mango soprano. So I designed a soprano ukulele that looks kind of like a tenor. Oh. It has this huge lower bout, and it's really deep. The depth of sides.
Wow. Yeah, I was gonna say I thought that was a grand tenor for a second, just by the shape.
This is the baby sister of the grand tenor. Here's a grand tenor next to it, and you'll see the size difference.
Oh yeah, wow. That's that's actually a really unique design for a soprano.
It allows a soprano. You put the low G on it, and you have the tone of a tenor. It doesn't have the same power as the grand tenor. It has enough, but is this big warm soprano with low end. It's pretty awesome.
Wow. Yeah.
I did a concert as well with the same concept. So a concert scale length with that oversized body, really deep, and made kind of I started out obviously with the grand tenor, and then designed the soprano and the concert to be kind of a family in that line. Did the same thing with the tiny tenor.
And the tiny tenor is like what I suggested. I'm guessing it's a tenor, right? But just that specific.
So the tiny tenor it's a tenor scale from nut to saddle, right? 17-inch. The overall length from the head to the tail is concert. So you have a tenor that travels like a concert.
Yeah, it's such a unique design. Like I still trip out when I see those.
The way I did it to achieve this was what Daniel Ho had requested. This was our first interaction on the ukulele where he started throwing ideas at me, and he wanted to travel with a concert, but he couldn't give up the tenor sound. So, and it had to feel like a tenor. So the lower bout where your forearm rests had to come out like the width of a tenor. The sound, in order to make a concert-sized tenor, I shrunk the head as much as possible. And then I got rid of the waist and the upper bout of the ukulele. This is all lower bout. If you look at from the sound hole to the butt, it's like a big tenor.
Yeah.
When you pluck the strings and it sets the bridge into motion, it's pumping a big soundboard, actually. I just eliminated what doesn't absolutely have to be there.
Oh, okay.
So that the weight and upper bout don't have to be there.
Yeah, it's such a cool.
That's the tiny tenor. And then later, fast forward to a couple years ago, I thought, that having a tenor that travels like a concert's really cool. So what if I could have a concert that's traveled like a soprano, but sounded like a tenor? Came up with the ST concert. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So this same exact body as the tiny tenor, but now I have a concert scale length. The tiny tenors join at the 14th fret. I joined this at the 12th fret. So I took 2 inches off the scale, pushed the neck down, and I have a concert scale on the tiny tenor body. I kept the bridge. Those the two things I tweaked, kept the bridge where I like it. So I have a concert scale. So this goes in a soprano gig bag, and it has the body of the tiny tenor, which puts a tenor sound out.
Wow, that's crazy. It's like 3-in-1 pretty much.
Yeah. And then this year, I took that concept to another level, because this is another ST concert, but I came up with a string set that you can put on a tenor or a concert and tune it to baritone, D, G, B, E.
Oh, I was just gonna say, do you have a baritone version of this?
Yes. That string set allows me to put, this sounds like a baritone. That's not in tune. I apologize.
No, it's all good.
It's a baritone that goes in a soprano gig bag.
That is crazy, man.
So I designed the string set for tenor. It works great on my grand tenor. You have a proper baritone that travels like a tenor, which is awesome.
I see. So
and then I started messing around on the ST concert, and it was like, wait, this has it has what you would want out of every single sized instrument.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So that's where I think it's a good thing that I really came into the ukulele not knowing enough to have preconceived notions, and I could just use it as a playground. In classical guitar building, things are so structured and rigid, and the clientele wants a certain thing rooted in tradition. And I've been a very traditional classical guitar builder, and I have my tweaks on it, but there's limited freedom into the expression that I get out of the ukulele community, who are totally open-minded to all these crazy concepts and ideas. And I just go in my workshop and mess around, and I talk to Daniel Ho almost every day, and he's throwing ideas at me, and that's about the pickiest ukulele player or musician really that I know. So incredibly hard to please, but inspired and knows what he wants. And so I take those ideas, I tweak them, and come up with all these crazy things.
Man, that's yeah, yeah, Daniel. Man, that guy's like a scientist of music. He knows exactly what the sound to just like such a high level. Like I was like when I talked to him, I was like, wow, like you see music and you can hear things like not your typical ukulele player can pick up on. Even I was like, I got like school was in session for me just talking to him, and I thought that was a blast. So oh, but I know what you mean by like like traditional and innovation and there's people who like the traditional approach, and there's people that I personally, like I have ukuleles that are traditional, but I love looking for ukuleles that have innovation and just like you was at four, like pretty much soprano to baritone in a way on one ukulele. That is just crazy,
Yeah,
and
it's
I
it's
love
fun.
stuff like that.
It's fun and it works. Though if it doesn't really work well, then all those crazy ideas are no good. Then they're crazy. But when you can get them to work really well, that's what's exciting.
Yeah, definitely, and that's just exciting. You have just unique products, and I think you even have do you still have the replica in production too?
Yes. So the replica, the only thing I've changed about the replica is I call it the signature tenor.
Oh, okay.
The It's kind of funny because the replica was our highest end Romero Creations, which is my production line. That's our highest end ukulele, and it's a copy. It's a replica of my custom ukulele.
Mm.
But I felt like the marketplace was seeing the word replica and thinking, well, why would I buy a replica? I want the real deal. But so it was kind of derogatory towards our highest end ukulele.
Oh,
So
I
it's
see.
the same thing, and it's just called the signature tenor. Let
Signature.
me see if I can. I got one hanging on the wall there. It's not well lit, but
Is that was that mahogany or
yes, that one's a mahogany. But they're one of our better selling instruments, still going strong.
nice, nice. So
It's
yeah, for those of
changed.
you who hasn't, really gotten to try out Pepe's ukuleles, definitely try them out. I have a grand tenor myself, and it's a great instrument. It's very different. Check out the tiny tenor and even the signature. Get some really cool stuff. So
Thank you. Yeah, and I encourage people to try that. It's my baby baritone set of strings.
mm,
It's to take a tenor ukulele or a concert, any ukulele you have. If you want a baritone, you can just change the strings and you have a baritone. It's kind of like a transformer doll, those little toys when you're a kid, you have transformers.
yeah,
That set
yeah,
of
yeah.
your instrument a transformer. It can be a
That's
baritone or it can be a standard tenor concert. So yeah, give those a look and a try on any. It's not just for my brands; it's for all brands.
that's cool. And then yeah, if you have two, then you can have like one baritone and one tenor, pretty much.
Yes.
Yeah, very
Or
cool.
in your case, I see your back wall. You could have a couple of each.
Yeah, yeah, I love just ukuleles and just I appreciate just the different things of different brands and just hearing the stuff that you put into your instruments, just like just taking notes. Oh yeah, like you got some. I like just the innovation that you put into your instruments as well. I really like.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
do you have
playing
anything like
around,
up
but
on?
on purpose.
Oh, what was that? Sorry.
I said I'm playing around, but with purpose.
Right, right, and that's how it should be. And I'm just curious, do you have any future big ideas, like
You can't
models?
really
I
plan
guess.
a good idea. Uh, my mind is open. The channels are open, ready to receive.
I guess an idea, like what would be cool to you? You think that something that you're thinking about experimenting with, or just like, oh, that would be kind of cool.
Right now, the next experiment isn't. I'm not looking at real body shapes, but actually, I do have one. It's not with the ukulele; it's with a guitar. But the
Okay,
the grand piano project I was telling you about,
right.
taking an 80-year-old dilapidated piano and turning it into a whole bunch of ukuleles, is super exciting to me. It's kind of upcycling. Um, the other experiment that I have right now is I want to apply that skin bracing that we were talking about
Mm-hmm.
to a steel string guitar.
Oh, so you never tried that before?
Right. No one's ever tried that. And there's another instrument that's inherently too heavily built. It has to be because of the string tension.
Mm.
But I think that that skin bracing system is going to work incredibly well. So that's a different experiment that I have. I've never even made one steel string.
Oh wow, that's gonna be exciting to just play with these new projects, and you never
Yeah,
know, it might be something incredible.
yeah, I think it will be. So that's another one of the summer projects, and playing with New Zealand kauri wood, combining that with koa is going to be exciting. Um, I've done some tweaks on my custom tiny tenors. I call it a super model, where I put a
Mm.
little side port and an arm bevel in it.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
those are not departures from what I've done already. It's just little tweaks. So I'm playing with that kind of stuff all the time. And when the next body shape or something comes up, I'll let you know.
Cool, cool. Awesome, man. Yeah. But hey, thank you so much for donating time from your day to come chat and talk story. Had a good time. Next time I'm in town, I'll definitely let you know. Stop by.
Good. Yeah, it would be great to see you and your dad too. And keep doing what you're doing too, and providing us with music to make us happy and inspired.
For sure. Thank you, Pepe. Pepe Romero Jr., everybody. And
Uh,
take care, my friend.
yeah, aloha.